The deep woods are full of untold mysteries. Here are some unsettling stories that give you goosebumps. Number 1. Disappearance of Charles McCullar. Charles McCullar was a young photographer and adventurer. In January 1975, he set off on a solo trip into Crater Lake National Park, hoping to capture the park's stunning winter landscapes with his camera. Before entering the wilderness, Charles stopped at a small store in Dry Creek to get some supplies. This was the last place anyone saw him alive. He told a friend that if he didn't return by a certain date, the friend should notify authorities. When Charles didn't return on time, his friend followed his instructions and contacted the police. A massive search began in Crater Lake National Park. A year later, in 1976, two hikers stumbled upon something disturbing. They were hiking near Bybee Creek, a remote area in the park, when they found some strange remains. It was Charles's backpack and clothes. What was even more shocking was how they found the remains. The hikers discovered Charles's pants resting on a log. Some of his foot bones were inside the pants, but there was no other sign of Charles's body. What happened to Charles McCullar? Some people believe he fell victim to the harsh winter conditions, while others think something more mysterious, even supernatural, was involved. Number 2. The terrifying encounter in the woods. A true story. I want to share a story from when I was 14 years old. It's a true event that still haunts me to this day. I lived with my parents and 3 brothers in a 2-story house near the woods. The woods were where we spent most of our time playing until it got dark, or our parents called us back inside. It was a regular day between 4:50 and 7:15 in the evening. My parents were out, and Michael was responsible for watching over us. He was talking to his girlfriend on the phone. Drew and Jake were in their room playing video games, and I was just chilling in the living room, right next to the sliding door that led to our porch and into the woods. About 2 hours passed, and everything seemed normal. But suddenly, I heard a knock on the sliding door. I looked over, but no one was there. At first, I thought I imagined it, so I went back to scrolling on my phone. But the knocking didn't stop. I started hearing something tapping on the glass door again. It was getting louder. I slowly opened the sliding glass door and stepped outside onto the porch. The woods were right in front of me. That's when I saw something that sent chills down my spine. A figure hiding behind an old, broken-down tree. It looked like a person. They were wearing a black hoodie, blue ripped jeans, and a white mask with a creepy, smiling face. I froze in place. I wanted to scream, but fear paralyzed me. The figure stood still for a moment, and then suddenly, they started running straight toward me. I turned to run back inside, but before I could move, the figure grabbed my hair. Panic washed over me. I was trapped, and I had no idea what would happen next. Luckily, my older brother Michael must have heard me scream because, out of nowhere, I heard a loud gunshot. The figure let go of my hair and staggered backward, clutching their shoulder. I didn't waste a second. I ran back inside as fast as I could, where I found Michael standing at the door with a shotgun, aiming it at the person. 4 months later, we saw a news report. The police had arrested the same person who attacked me. It turned out they were involved in a 5th-degree murder. Even now, I wonder what could have happened if Michael hadn't been there to save me that night. Number 3. The Golden Fur Encounter. We've had problems with trespassers and illegal hunters in the woods near my house for a while. To address safety concerns, I installed 3 old cameras along the tree line behind my house. It was a Monday morning around 7 a.m., and the sun was just starting to rise as I was leaving for work. That's when I noticed something white near the trees. Curious, I got out of my car and walked over. What I found was a deer skeleton. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted prank, but there was fresh blood on some of the bones, and a blood trail that disappeared into the woods. I rushed to check my cameras, hoping they'd caught something, but what I found was disturbing. All 3 cameras had been ripped off the trees and smashed to pieces. The film was shredded beyond recovery, but near one of the destroyed cameras, I found a small piece of golden fur. That piece of fur brought back memories of my earlier encounter with that strange creature. It was then I realized the creature might have done this. I reported the destruction to the sheriff's office, and the game warden cleaned up the carcass. He mentioned that he'd never seen a deer picked so clean, with all the bones intact. Number 4. The Port Chapman Monster. My grandfather, born in Greenwich, Connecticut in 1900, was an avid outdoorsman, and he loved camping, fishing, and working as a mechanic. But one experience stuck with him for the rest of his life. He worked in Port Chapman, Alaska from 1938 to 1942. One evening, while sitting in a local tavern, he overheard a story from a hunter who claimed to have encountered a giant grizzly bear like nothing he'd ever seen before. After that, people started disappearing. Hunters vanished without a trace, and dismembered remains were found in the woods. Fearing for his life, my grandfather left Port Chapman and never went back. He believed there was something unknown lurking in those Alaskan wildernesses, and many others shared his belief. Some even claimed that the port was deserted by the 1950s because of whatever creatures were out there. Number 5. The Creature in Central PA. This happened in January of last year on a trail called Chicky's Rock, near the Susquehanna River. It was a Sunday evening around 4:30 p.m., not completely dark, but the sun was setting. My brother and I were walking along the trail when we saw something that still haunts me to this day. About 30 yards ahead, I noticed an animal that looked like nothing I had ever seen before. It had features of a kangaroo, a greyhound, and maybe even a deer, all blended. Its fur was a strange, grayish color. I called my brother, and he managed to catch a glimpse before it disappeared into the woods. What was even stranger was how it vanished. There were no leaves or thick bushes, and yet it disappeared completely from view. We couldn't explain it, and to this day, we have no idea what we saw. Number 6. The Unsettling Whistling in the Appalachian Woods. I live in rural Southwest Virginia, deep in the Appalachian Mountains. A few nights ago, I had an experience that left me terrified. It was around 7 p.m. and it was nearly pitch black outside. I was alone in the woods, playing airsoft and enjoying the quiet. As I stood at the top of a hill, I suddenly heard a strange whistling tune. It didn't sound like any bird I knew. and the sound seemed to be coming from just beyond the property line, about 150 feet away. Instantly, I felt like I was being watched. My heart raced, and without a second thought, I rushed home. The whistling stopped as soon as I started running, but the unsettling feeling didn't leave. I kept looking back, but I couldn't see anything. I've spent years in these woods, and I've never encountered anything like this. It didn't feel like an animal, and our dogs, who usually bark at wildlife, were completely silent. Number 7. The Scary Encounter at Lee Woods. In May 2017, I was 17 years old. I was bored of riding around the streets and wanted to try something new, something more exciting. So, I decided to go for a trail ride through the woods. Lee Woods, a forest near Bristol, caught my eye. The trail signs, marked by colors, indicated their difficulty. I picked the blue trail first. It seemed easy enough, just what I needed to get started. After a while, I decided to try a more challenging path. I came to a strange opening. Of course, I chose to go deeper. But soon, I found myself staring down a trail that just felt wrong. Suddenly, I heard a woman's voice, soft but heartbreaking. It came from behind a tree up ahead. I slowed down, hoping I could help, but there was no one there. The crying stopped, just like that. I tried to brush it off, but as I continued walking, the crying started again, this time from across the river. I began to run, feeling that something, or someone, was following me. The crying got louder. Whatever was behind me was keeping up. And then, out of nowhere, my bike tire went flat. I had no choice but to run. When I finally reached the car park, the crying stopped. My bike, which had slowed me down moments before, was suddenly working fine again. The tire was solid. Just like that, everything was normal again. These 7 true deep woods scary stories remind us that nature, while beautiful and serene, can also hide unsettling mysteries. From strange sounds to ghostly encounters,